Welcome to Courage in the Darkness with your host, Phillip Roberts. It's time to awaken America, y'all. Let's get into it.
Courage, truth, compassion, freedom, faith. Welcome back to Courage in the Darkness. Tonight, I'm going to talk about something that most people avoid because it sparks strong emotions. I'm going to talk about abortion. And instead of doing my usual putting up the imagery on the side of me, I'm not gonna do that tonight because I don't want the video taken down. I want people to see it, share it, like it, discuss it, hate it, but I want people to talk about it. I want people to get into the comments. Don't fight. Please be respectful and all of that. So with that said, let's get into it. I cover topics like this because I really believe with all my heart that these are the conversations that we need to have. Not to divide or make anybody angry, but to discuss truth, compassion, and responsibility. I'm a Trump supporter, but I don't agree with everything that he says, especially on abortion. Personally, I believe that abortion should never be used as a solution. This topic is deeply personal, and somewhere out there, someone listening right now may be alive because their mother chose life under difficult circumstances. If all of us were in a room together, could you tell who was conceived in rape or in poverty? No, you couldn't. Neither could I. Every life has the same dignity, the same potential. That's why babies in the womb deserve the same human rights as anyone else. Today, we're going to talk about when life begins, the reality of what an abortion actually is, why doctors performing these procedures aren't being prosecuted, the history and funding of Planned Parenthood, Roe versus Wade, and the information that's deliberately being withheld from women. We'll discuss the long-term effects that women aren't told about, what happens during an abortion procedure, and why we desperately need legislative reform. This episode isn't about blaming women. It's about shining light on the truth, offering hope, and understanding that life is sacred. Most women getting abortions have no idea what they're actually agreeing to, and they're not shown ultrasounds. They're not told about the psychological trauma that could follow them for years, and they're certainly not shown what the procedure actually looks like. So let me be direct. Life begins at conception, and this isn't a religious opinion or a political stance. It's a biological fact. From the moment a sperm meets an egg, a unique human DNA sequence exists that's never existed before and will never exist again. This is a human being at the earliest stages of development. Every heartbeat, every developing organ, every cell in that tiny body is unmistakably human. And if life begins at conception, then ending that life is murder. Let's not dance around it with euphemisms. We're talking about the intentional killing of a human being. So here's my question. If abortion is the ending of a human life, why aren't these doctors performing these procedures being charged with murder? Why do we have laws that will prosecute someone for double homicide if they kill a pregnant woman, recognizing the unborn child as a victim, but those same laws allow a doctor to end that child's life in a clinic without consequence? This is the legal and moral contradiction we're living with. Either the unborn child is a human being with rights, or it isn't. You can't have it both ways. The law can simultaneously recognize an unborn child as a murder victim in one context and as disposable tissue in another. This inconsistency exposes the lie that we've been sold. We need serious legislative reform. We need laws that recognize life at conception and protect those lives accordingly. If we truly believe that all human beings have inherent rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, then those rights must be extended to the womb. Anything less is selective justice, and selective justice is no justice at all. Some people use terms like fetus or even call the unborn a parasite to make ending a pregnancy feel acceptable. A fetus is simply the Latin word for offspring or young one. Calling a human fetus a parasite is scientifically inaccurate and morally reprehensible. A parasite is a foreign organism feeding off a host from a different species. A child in the womb isn't foreign, it's the same species as the mother, a human being growing inside of another human being. This is biology, not opinion. Words matter. Again, I find myself saying that over and over and over. Language shapes how we think about morality. When you dehumanize something, it becomes easier to destroy it. That's exactly what's happened with abortion. Change the language, change the perception, and suddenly ending a life doesn't seem so bad. But no amount of linguistic manipulation changes the reality. Abortion stops a beating heart. It ends a human life. Here's what makes this even more tragic. Most women seeking abortions are completely uninformed about what they're actually doing and what it'll cost them. The abortion industry thrives on keeping women in the dark. Let's start with ultrasounds. Why do you think abortion providers resist ultrasound requirements so fiercely? Because they know what'll happen when a woman sees her baby on that screen. Studies have shown that when women are given the opportunity to see an ultrasound before an abortion, a significant percentage chooses life. They see the tiny fingers, the beating heart, the human shape, and suddenly this isn't an abstract concept anymore. It's their child. The abortion industry knows this. That's why they fight mandatory ultrasound laws tooth and nail. They frame it as harassment or unnecessary medical procedure. But the real reason is simple. Ultrasounds save lives. When women see the truth, many change their minds. Now let's talk about the procedure itself. If more people actually witnessed what happens during an abortion, public opinion would shift dramatically. I'm going to describe this because people need to know the truth, and I apologize in advance because it's disturbing, but that's exactly the point. During a surgical abortion, the baby is torn apart limb from limb. In many procedures, the abortionist uses forceps to grasp and pull off arms, legs, and other body parts. The baby's skull is then crushed to allow removal. Former abortion providers have testified about seeing babies struggle, try to move away from the instruments, appearing to fight for their lives. There's documented evidence of this through ultrasound imaging during abortion procedures. Think about that. A living human, a living human being, trying to escape, trying to survive. And we call this a medical procedure. We call this healthcare. There are videos, actual footage from former abortion doctors who left the industry, showing the baby's movements during the procedure. They describe it as the child seemingly calling out for help, recoiling from the instruments. Dr. Bernard Nathanson, a former abortion provider who performed thousands of abortions, eventually became a pro-lifer after ultrasound tech allowed him to see what was really happening. He said, watching an abortion on the ultrasound screen changed everything for him. The child appeared to be screaming, though no sound could be heard. This is the reality that women are never shown. They're told it's just tissue, just a clump of cells, a simple procedure. They're not told about the humanity of what's being destroyed. They're certainly not shown images or videos of what's actually happening. Beyond the immediate horror of the procedure, there are long-term effects that women rarely, if ever, counseled about before their abortion. Post-abortion syndrome is real. Though the abortion industry, they try to dismiss it. Women report years, sometimes decades of psychological trauma, depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, and grief that never fully goes away. Many women describe feeling like they lost part of themselves, like they can never undo what they've done. Anniversary dates become unbearable. They think about how old their child would be. They imagine what their son or daughter would have looked like. Some women experience relationship problems afterwards. They struggle with intimacy. They push away partners or future children because of unresolved guilt. Some turn to substance abuse, trying to numb the pain. Others become hypervigilant or overprotective of subsequent children, constantly afraid of losing them as a punishment for their choice. There can be physical complications too, increased risk of future pregnancy complications, potential fertility issues, and in rare cases, serious medical emergencies. But even when the physical recovery is smooth, the emotional and spiritual wounds often remain. And here's the devastating part. Women are told that if they experience these feelings, there's something wrong with them. They're told that abortion is empowering, that it's just healthcare, that they should feel relieved. So when they don't, when they feel broken instead, they're left isolated, unable to talk about it, convinced that they're the problem. The abortion industry profits from keeping women uninformed. A woman who knows the truth about fetal development, who sees an ultrasound, who understands the long-term psychological risks, she's far more likely to choose life. Information is the enemy of the abortion business. You can't understand abortion in America without understanding Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood. Sanger founded what would become Planned Parenthood in the early 20th century, and she wasn't simply advocating for women's health. She was a eugenicist who believed certain populations, particularly poor communities and communities of color, should be prevented from reproducing. Her own writings make this clear. She spoke at eugenics conferences. She corresponded with Nazi scientists. She advocated for forced sterilization and birth control distribution, specifically targeted at populations she deemed inferior. This wasn't subtle. This was explicit eugenics disguised as women liberation. Today, Planned Parenthood tries to distance itself from Sanger's worst statements, but the legacy continues. Look at where the clinics are located, disproportionately in low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. In some cities, black women have abortion rates 3 to 4 times higher than white women. This isn't coincidence. It's the continuation of Sanger's vision. Planned Parenthood receives over $500 million in taxpayer funding every year through programs like Medicaid and Title X. They'll tell you that federal money doesn't directly fund abortions, but that's a shell game. Money is fungible. When taxpayer dollars pay for their buildings, staff, utilities, and administrative costs, it frees up other resources for abortion services. We are all funding the largest abortion provider in America, whether we want to or not. And these guys are politically powerful. They spent millions on lobbying campaign contributions, almost exclusively to the politicians who support unrestricted abortion access. They've successfully framed their mission as women's healthcare while performing hundreds of thousands of abortions every year. They offer prenatal care and adoption referrals at a tiny, tiny fraction compared to their abortion services, despite claiming to be about comprehensive healthcare. The messaging is strategic and predatory. Women in crisis, facing poverty, instability, or fear, are told abortion is their only option. They're not connected with adoption agencies. They're not told about the financial assistance programs, community support, or the hundreds of thousands of families desperate to adopt. They're sold a quick fix that ends a life and often leaves them traumatized. Let's talk about Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade in 1973 wasn't just a Supreme Court ruling, it fundamentally altered American culture and law. Before Roe, abortion was was restricted or illegal in most states. There was widespread recognition, even among some who supported limited abortion access, that an unborn child was a human being. Roe changed that conversation overnight, like boom. The decision claimed to find constitutional right to abortion based on privacy, but there's no mention of abortion in the Constitution. The Supreme Court invented this right, overriding the democratic process in all 50 states and imposing a one size fits all policy on the entire nation. More than that, Roe changed how we talk about life. Suddenly, baby became fetus, killing became terminating a pregnancy, abortion clinic became re- reproductive health care facility. The unborn child was transformed from a human being into an abstract concept. And once you dehumanize something, I'll say it again, it becomes much easier to destroy. Roe polarized America in ways we're still dealing with today. It divided the nation into pro choice and pro life camps with very little room for dialogue. It turned abortion into a political litmus test, and it created a culture where ending your child's life could be framed as empowerment and freedom. But freedom without responsibility isn't freedom, it's license to harm. God gave us free will. That doesn't make every choice we make morally acceptable. We have the freedom to commit murder, but it doesn't make it right. Roe versus Wade took the question of abortion out of the hands of voters and legislators and declared it was a constitutional right. That was judicial activism at its worst. The good news is that Roe was eventually overturned in 2022 with the Dobbs decision. The question of abortion was returned to the states where it belongs. But the damage Roe did over nearly 50 years, the millions of lives lost, the cultural shifts, the dehumanization of the unborn, that's still with us. Now, we need legislation at the state and federal level that recognizes life at conception, and protects those lives accordingly. We need laws that treat abortion as what it is, the taking of an innocent human life. We need accountability for those who perform abortion and profit from this industry. and we need a complete overhaul of how we approach crisis pregnancies with support, resources, and alternatives instead of a quick appointment at an abortion clinic. The pro choice movement relies on several key arguments, and we need to address them directly because they dominate the conversation. Poverty is the most common justification. The argument goes bringing a child into poverty condemns both mother and baby. So abortion is the compassionate choice. But since when is killing somebody a acceptable response to their economic situation? We don't euthanize poor people. I mean, last I checked, we don't kill homeless people because their lives might be difficult. The solution to poverty is support, not death. There are hundreds of thousands of families in America waiting to adopt. Adoption provides a life affirming alternative where the child can thrive and the mother receives support without anyone dying. Crisis pregnancy centers exist across the country offering free ultrasounds, prenatal care, baby supplies, job training, and housing assistance. These resources are available, but women are often never told about them because the abortion industry doesn't profit from adoption or support services. Then there's the health argument. Some claim that abortion saves women's lives and that restricting abortion kills women. Let's be clear about something. Treating an ectopic pregnancy and other life-threatening conditions are not the same as elective abortion. These are already handled by medical professionals under existing standards of care. No pro-life legislation is preventing doctors from saving a mother's life when there's a genuine medical emergency. The vast majority of abortions, over 90%, are elective. They're not performed because of medical necessity. They're performed for social or economic reasons. The narrative that women will die en masse without abortion access is fear-mongering, not supported by data. Maternal mortality is linked to factors like pre-existing conditions, obesity, drug use, and lack of prenatal care, not abortion access. Some argue that abortion is compassionate because it prevents children from being unwanted or suffering. This is perhaps the most insulting argument of all. It assumes that life in difficult circumstances isn't worth living. It assumes you can predict somebody's future and determine they'd be better off dead. Many people who grew up in poverty, in foster care, or facing hardship go on to live meaningful, productive lives. Who are we to decide their lives weren't worth living? And let's talk about that word unwanted. Every year, couples spend tens of thousands of dollars, endure invasive medical procedures, and wait years for the chance to adopt a baby. There's no unwanted babies, only uninformed mothers who aren't connected with the families desperate to love their child. This isn't just a legal or political issue. It's fundamentally a moral and spiritual question about human dignity and God's design. Life is sacred from conception. God forms each person in the womb with purpose and intention. Every life, regardless of how it was conceived, whether in love or trauma, in wealth or poverty, has inherent value. Ending that life doesn't just rob the child of their future, it robs the world of their potential contribution. Think about the possibilities erased by abortion. The doctor who might have cured cancer, the engineer who could have solved the energy crisis, the teacher who would have inspired thousands of students, the mother or father who would have raised the next generation. We've lost over 60 million lives to abortion since Roe versus Wade. How many solutions to our problems were destroyed? How many acts of beauty and creativity will never exist? From a Christian perspective, every person is made in the image of God. That image bearing begins at conception, not at birth or at some arbitrary point of development. To destroy that life is to assault the image of God Himself. Supporting women in crisis doesn't require killing their children. It requires creating networks of support, offering practical help, connecting women with resources, and building communities that value both mother and child. It means churches stepping up, pregnancy centers expanding their services, and individuals choosing to foster or adopt. It means we put our money and time where our beliefs are. Understanding the issue isn't enough. We have to act. Every person listening has the power to create change. First, have conversations. Talk to friends, family, and community members about this. Share facts, share science, but do it with compassion. We're not trying to win arguments. We're trying to change hearts and save lives. Be bold, but be kind. Many people simply haven't thought deeply about the issue because they've only heard one side. Second, support women in crisis pregnancies. Volunteer at pregnancy centers. Donate to organizations providing prenatal care, housing, and job training. If you're in a position to do so, consider fostering or adopting. Open your home, your resources, and your time to mothers who need help. True compassion protects both mother and child. Third, educate people about what abortion actually is. Show them the ultrasound images. Share the testimonies from former abortion providers. Help them understand fetal development. When people see the humanity of the unborn child, opinions change. Information is the pro-life movement's greatest weapon. Fourth, push for legislative reform. Contact your representatives. Vote for candidates who will protect life at conception. Support laws requiring ultrasounds before abortion, banning late-term abortion, and defunding Planned Parenthood. Advocate for laws that would hold abortion providers accountable for what they're actually doing, ending human lives. We need legislation that recognizes the unborn child as a person under the law with full rights. We need prosecutors willing to investigate abortion as homicide. We need a complete reformation of how our legal system treats life in the womb. This won't happen overnight, but it starts with people demanding change. Fifth, pray. Pray for women facing crisis pregnancies. Pray for the children in the womb. Pray for abortion providers, that their hearts would be changed and they'd leave the industry. Pray for political leaders to have the courage to stand for life, even when it's unpopular. And pray for our culture to return to valuing the sanctity of human life. This has been one of the hardest conversations we can have, but it's necessary. Abortion is the defining moral issue of our time. Over 60 million lives have been lost in America alone since 1973. That's more than died in every American war combined. It's a Holocaust hiding in plain sight. Sanitized by medical language and protected by political power. But there's hope. When people see the truth, when they see ultrasound images, when they learn about fetal development, when they understand what abortion actually involves, hearts change. Women choose life. Communities rally to support mothers in need. Lives are saved. I want to leave you with this verse that captures everything we've discussed. Psalm 139, 13 through 14 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Every life from the moment of conception is fearfully and wonderfully made by God. That child in the womb isn't just tissue or potential. They are a unique, irreplaceable human being with infinite worth. And if we truly believe that, then we have a responsibility to defend them, to speak for them, and to create a culture that values them. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Engage in conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. Support life-affirming organizations in your community. Push for the laws that protect the unborn, and stand firm in the truth, even when the culture pushes back. If you found this episode helpful, please share it, like it, and subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you found value in what I'm doing, or you want to support the work that I'm doing, consider becoming a member on Patreon at Courage in the Darkness, where you could find even more content. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week. God bless you.